Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pungam langhayate girim yat kripatamaham vande Shri Guru Dinaparna Ramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. Yes. Yeah. Down one, Prabhu, that the next shloka, that this last time few verses we'll discuss, but then the next verse, the 11th one.
Which one, Prabhu? This one?
The down. After this. Yeah. Today we'll discuss on this, continuing the same topic of the two modes which are mentioned in the last previous verses. Rajastamahate tabe pai benista hridayera bhadrasate guchidetaha. Rajastamahate tabe pai benista hridayera bhadrasate guchidetaha. He will become liberated from the influence of the modes of ignorance and passion, and thus all inauspicious things accumulate in the core of the heart will disappear. So, this is the verse. Continuing the discussion of the last week's the same theme. Today we'll try to see that we are discussing here and in the previous verses also that about the Rajas and Tamo Bhava. We'll little bit try to see from Bhagavad Gita about these two modes, the Rajas and Tamas, what it does, and then further we'll try to see on the solution part which Prabhupada gives in one of the lecture, which I'll just share from that. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, while discussing with Arjuna the whole different themes, when it comes to the 14th chapter, there Krishna starts speaking about the three modes of material nature. The chapter itself is named as the three modes of material nature, where he goes on explaining about the three modes. We'll try to see few verses and important statements of Prabhupada from those verses. Because once we understand what does this three modes or what this does, Rajas and Tamas, just like a person who has understood that he is in a miserable state or he is in a precarious condition, he will try to come out of it. If a drunkard is told that when he is lying down next to a gutter, if he is told that, oh sir, you are lying next to the gutter, please come, I'll help you out to take you out of this or take to the other side, he will say, no, I am happy, because he is not able to understand his precarious position. But the same thing when it comes to when the whole intoxication, he comes out of that and he says the same thing, he will feel very disgusting. So unless till the time one feels this as disgusting, it is very difficult to live. Although two things are there in this. One thing is that one should feel that it is disgusting, then one can try to live. But even one thing to know from the head, that is at the level of the mind, that one may know that yes, it is disgusting, but to take it out from the heart is much more difficult. Because one thing is intellectually to know, and second thing is to actually to say no and give it up. Many times we may have experience that we know certain things are not conducive, certain thoughts or certain things are not conducive for bhakti. But even though we know from the intelligence, or not from the intelligence, at the level of the mind, at the level of the heart, we are not able to give it up because it keeps this rajas and tamas. What it does is this is a downward vector. It keeps pushing us down, 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 and we'll read from Prabhupada. Because of that pushing downwards, unless there is a equivalent upward, uh, what I can say, the vector, then uh, it will not be able to sustain that. Just a minute. Is it visible too?
No, Prabhuji, not yet, Prabhu.
Okay. Um, Please grant browser access. Um,
Or you can tell the
because when I was
shloka. Yeah.
when I was logging in, it showed that I have to update the Zoom. So I have logged in from the browser, so it has some limitations. It is not.
Yeah, you can tell me, Prabhuji, I will do it, Prabhu.
Yes, true. It is 14.6. I'll be reading few verses, this one in between Bhagavad Gita.
Okay, Prabhuji, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Is it visible, Prabhuji, to you now?
For me, I'll see from the this one too. I'm okay.
Okay, Prabhuji, we can go ahead, Prabhuji. 14.6 I shared.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, sir. I'll just maybe I'll keep reading the few points. I'll just maybe you may have to search for that a little. Sorry for the trouble.
No problem, Prabhuji.
So in the fifth verse, Krishna is telling that about these three modes. He says, Sattvam Rajas Tama iti guna prakriti sambhavaha nibadnanti mahabhaho dehi dehinam avyayam. He says that this material nature consists of three modes: the goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the living entity comes in contact with nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these three modes. Prabhupada used to give this simple example that just take the soul is pure by nature, just like the rainwater is pure, but when it comes in contact with the soil, it becomes muddy. The same way, soul is pure by nature, but when it comes in contact with this material nature, when it comes to this world, the three modes are there because the whole in the creation itself, if you read the third canto, it comes that how from the sound everything starts, and then like no, the ahankara, the mahat tattva is there. Then when it comes in contact with the mode of ignorance, then the mind intelligence is formed and all the things starts. So the same way, when it comes in contact with this material nature, he acquires these three modes. And especially these three modes, based on one's, just like we read in the Bhagavad Gita 8th chapter also, Antakale chamameva sparan muktva kalevaram. At the end of the life, contemplating on what? Yam yam mapi sparan bhavam tyajatante kalevaram. Accordingly, he gets the next birth. At the time of the death, this gross body, which is made up of the five Panchamahabhutas, it like no is destroyed. Whereas the soul, with the covering of the subtle body of the mind, intelligence, and false ego, is the one which is waiting for the next body. And the mind is like a can be considered like a hard disk which carries all the previous impressions, and based on these impressions or inclinations, the next body is given according to the karma. The same way, based on what inclination he had or what kind of lifestyle he had led, and based on those, he is given the next body in which, based on the previous things, he will be in the mode of passion or ignorance or the goodness. That's why we see sometimes some people will see what are the qualities, then accordingly, then we can clearly see that some people are like, no, the moment you get 5 minutes time, they want to sleep and sleep, and always lazy. That is the mode of ignorance. And some people, you they cannot stay at one place or like now without doing anything. They're constantly active and like very ambitious, like no, do this, do that, and all. Very passionate. And some people are like no, always anything they do, they're peacefully they do. Even like no, some people. Okay, for example, you have to travel now. A person who is like in the mode of ignorance, he will not plan anything till the last moment, and last moment he will be like no, oh, I have not planned how to go to the station, then like no ticket is not booked. He will be rushing in the last moment because he procrastinates everything. And a person in the mode of passion, he may be the moment he decides that like I have to go, okay, immediately like he'll book that this one, and then he'll start planning, okay, now after going there, what will I do, what, where all I'll go, and like no, uh, very eagerly like no, okay, I'll have this, I'll have that, and all. A person in the mode of goodness, he will properly plan, properly have, okay, what is the purpose of going there. A person in the mode of passion may see something and he may get carried away with those things. But a person in the mode of goodness, he will be like no, peaceful. He knows what is the purpose I am going, and he will fulfill it. The same way, now Krishna is going to tell the uh, all the three modes, explains about that, and at the same time, how, what are the nature of these three modes. The next verse he tells about uh, the mode of goodness. O sinless one, in the sixth verse, the mode of goodness, being purer than the other, is illuminating and is frees one from all sinful reactions. Those who situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. We'll see in the next, like later in the Prabhupada also in the purport tells that these three modes, although goodness is superior compared to the ignorance and the passion, but still, even the mode of goodness is binding. With like now, what is that binding? It is mentioned here. It is conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. And the people, let's say Prabhupada gives an example at another place that sometimes the people who are like scientists or philosophers, they're in the mode of goodness, and such people, it may be very difficult for them to take to the path of bhakti because they feel they are already like no, they are happy. What more to be achieved? Or they feel that oh, I know everything, and because of that, sometimes it may become a stumbling block. We see sometimes those who are born in the family of a brahmana, they may be more susceptible not to accept Krishna consciousness very easily. Sometimes, like no, because what happens, they will feel, oh, I am following all the four regulative principles, I'm not breaking it, and I'm leading a religious life. So what is the difference between, like, now the way I am leading my, what I can say, the life of pious materialistic life, than to take to bhakti? That may become a stumbling block. So here also Krishna is telling that they condition by a sense of happiness and knowledge. Then, like, the Krishna goes on to tell about the other two. In the seventh verse, Rajo Ragatmakam Viddhi Krishna Sanga Samadbhavam Tanyabadnanti Kaunteya Karma Sangena Dehina. The mode of passion is born of unlimited desire and longings, O son of Kunti, and because of this, the embodied living entity is bound to material futile actions. Here, unlimited desire and longings. Here it is Sangha, association, and Trishna, hankering. It is for the material things. And Prabhupada in this, like, now, Prabhupada tells the epitome of the whole hankering for any longing for something and unlimited desire, that comes to the final stage of the attraction between the man and woman, he says. And then here, Sangha and Trishna. Trishna means that which is devoid of Krishna. And then what happens, that creates such a longing that she wants it more and more and more. If you see this, that is nothing but the lust or the kama. And that's what Krishna tells in the Bhagavad Gita, third chapter also. If we see in the, like, now, third chapter, 37th verse, when Arjuna asks that, Krishna, why is that sometimes, although doesn't want to do anything wrong, we are being pushed from inside, as if, like, no, that there is some great force. Then Krishna tells in the third chapter, 37th verse, like, no, Kamesha Krodhaesha Rajoguna Samudbhava Mahashano Mahapapma Vidyenam Ya Vairinam. He says that it is, like, no, the Kama and Krodha, these are the reasons, which is Mahashana Mahapapma, which is the, he calls it as the mm, greatly sinful, like, no, all devouring Mahashana. Ashna means the burning, that's why it's all devouring. So what it does, it burns a person, and it's a, like, no, Vairinam, it's the greatest enemy of any person. And how this is, what is the cause of this? And Krishna tells Rajoguna Samudbhavaha. It is born out of the Rajoguna, or the mode of passion. And like, no, uh, Prabhupada again here he gives the example that uh, uh, same example of when the soul comes to this material world, just like the milk comes in contact with the curd, it gets transformed. So the same way, like, no, uh, the uh, soul which is pure, when it comes in contact with this material nature, Rajo and Tamoguna, all the three modes are there based on his previous this one. When he comes in touch, then he again gets all this. And here, Kama and Krodha. Kama means the lust. Lust means a intense desire to have something for one's enjoyment. Like, now, when you say, like, no, Kama, it doesn't mean just the, like, no, enjoyment of a man and woman. It is the anything it can be. Like, no, that's what in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami gives the definition of Kama and Prema. That is, uh, कृष्णेन्द्रिय प्रीतिवांच धरे प्रेमनाम आत्मेन्द्रिय प्रीतिवांच धरे कामानाम. That is like atma indriya pritivancha, like, no, for the sense satisfaction of one's own atma and the indriya senses, like, no, and the mind, that which one is wanting to have, that is kama. And krishnendriya pritivancha, for the sake of giving pleasure to Krishna, that is the prema. And this kama lust, what happens is it burns the heart, that constantly wanting that I want it, I want it, I want it. Like now in the same, in one of the lecture, Srila Prabhupada, for this verse 1 to 19, Prabhupada writes, it even a person who is a millionaire may have so much of money, but still he wants to have more, 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 and more. Once, when one wealthiest person was interviewed, what is that you are always thinking of? He said, I'm consciously always like worrying that I should not go uh, down in my, like he was in some position like third or second in the world or something. I should maintain my position and always want to have more and more and more. So that hankering is there. That's what we see. Even Ravana, even after having so many beautiful wives, so many queens were there, but still he wanted to have, the moment he saw Vedavati, he wanted to go and enjoy. When he saw the wives of Nalakuvara and Manigriva, he wanted to enjoy like no her. And the moment when he saw Mother Sita, heard about Mother Sita, he wanted to enjoy her. That is Atmendri Pritivancha, for one's own self, and that is this the Kama. And when this lust, Kama, when it is unfulfilled, then it turns into Krodha. One becomes angry, and when that is fulfilled, he wants it more and more and more. That gives rise to the mm, greed, lobha. And in the 17th chapter, Krishna tells that kama, krodha, lobha, these are the three gateways to hell. That's why one should give up this etam, etar, trayam tyajet. I don't know the exact stroke. That these three should be given up, he says. Otherwise, what happens? Like no, the hankering is there for asatsanga trishna, that is like which is not in uh, relation to Krishna, for one's own self enjoyment. And when one gets, he becomes greedy, wanting to have more and more. And when he doesn't get, he becomes like angry. And all these are born out of the like the Krishna is telling is that the Rajoguna. And then Krishna in the same, like no, he says that how uh, this is of different degrees, and where it is stored, or like no, uh, this all this desire of the lust, that Krishna tells in the same further verses of 3 in the 340 says, the senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence. Through them, the lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. And Prabhupada says, the enemy, like now, he has different strategic positions and where he sits to attack on the opponent. And if the enemy is undetected, if one knows the enemy, then he can work on that or try to do the needful. But if his enemy is undetected or not known, that is a more dangerous situation. Just like in 2009, when no 2008, that 2611 in the Bombay, that attacked the Taj Hotel and all, terrorists, uh, they had heard that there is some attack, or there is a plan. So the military, they were ready with all the like to some extent avoiding the border and everything, but they had never expected that the terrorists may come from the seaside. That's why they were very relaxed, or they had not much thought of anything. Because the enemy was undetected, they entered through the water. The same way when the like one is this doesn't know from where this enemy is there, or where he is sitting or what he is doing, that becomes much more susceptible. But when one knows, at least one knows, oh, I have to work on this. So, and in the next one, Krishna says, therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning, curb this greatest symbol of sin, that is the lust, by regulating the senses and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self realization. That is because if you see the chariot analogy which Krishna gave in the second chapter, also Krishna tells to Arjuna, this body is the chariot, and in the chariot there is the five horses are there, which are the senses, and the rein is the rope is the mind, and the driver is the intelligence, and the soul is the passenger. So in this, the five senses, the nature of the senses is that it wants to go towards its sense objects. Eyes want to see something beautiful object, ear wants to hear something very melodious, nose wants to smell something which is very fragrant, tongue wants to taste something which is very tasty, and the skin wants to touch which is very pleasurable, soft. So all five wants to run in five different directions, and that pulls the mind. And the mind, what it does, based on its previous experience, if it the previous experience was very nice, it says yes, go it, go. And if the previous experience is not good, it says no, because the nature of the mind is to accept and reject. Accept if the previous experience was good, reject if the previous experience was bad. Just like if somebody had uh, eaten, say, karela sabji. Karela sabji, if it can be made like the in a proper way, which is very, although it has bitterness, but still it is tasty. Or another is just it is bitter. If the previous experience is just bitter, then in the moment Karela hears Karela, no. But once he tastes it, yes, I want it. If it is good. So the same way, like no, the nature of the mind is to say accept or reject, but based on the previous experience. And our previous experience, because of the previous all the lifetimes and all, if it is that like attraction towards that which is devoid of Krishna, then again that will run towards it. And because one doesn't have any taste of the Krishna consciousness, even if it is given, it says no, no, no. So that's why, because unless one tastes, and even if it tastes, like no, as Krishna tells in the Bhagavad Gita only, that the happiness in the mode of goodness is like the poison in the beginning and nectar at the end. So that way, initially when one has to regulate or do things, then one feels bitterness or like no, just like the Prabhupada used to give the example of the jaundice. A person who is having the jaundice, he feels that everything is bitter, and even the sugarcane juice is given, he feels it as a bitter. But the medicine is the same sugarcane juice. He has to take it continuously. Although feeling bitter, if he keeps taking it again and again and again, pittopatapta rasanasya na rauchikano. Pitta upta rasanasya. That is like because of the pitta, that is like now the bile juice. Na rauchikano, that he cannot taste the sweetness. Kintu adarat anudinam khalusaiva justat. Swadvi kramad tadgata moola hantri. That is like he says, Kintu still Adarat with on reverence, Adarat with delight, Anudinam every day, Khalusaiva Justat. If he takes that again and again, then Swadvi Kramena, like in the slowly, gradually, his that the jaundice will go away and he can taste the actual. The same way, the Krishna tells that the uh, one has to work on this, like controlling the senses. And the same thing in the, if we, I just put again 14th chapter. In the verse 8, Then, sorry, in the seventh verse down, Prabhupada says modern civilization is considered to be advanced in the standard of mode of passion. Right now, because Prabhupada is telling that this world, whole material world, is like no wanting to have more and more and more and more and more. So that's why it's in the mode of the passion. If there is no liberation for those in the mode of goodness, what to speak of those who are in the mode entangled in the mode of passion? Because Prabhupada is telling that even the goodness is also binding. Then what to speak of the person in the mode of passion? Then Krishna speaks in the verse 8 on the Tamoguna. O son of Bharata, know that the mode of darkness born of ignorance is the delusion of all embodied living entities. The result of this mode are madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned souls. Prabhupada in that the writes, he points, in the mode of goodness, by the development of knowledge, one can understand what is what. It is like the mode of goodness is like wearing the white glass, whereas the mode of passion is like wearing a red glass, and where a mode of ignorance is like wearing a dark glass. So, but in the mode of ignorance is just the opposite. Everyone under the spell of mode of ignorance becomes mad, and madmen cannot understand what is what. So instead of making advancement, one becomes degraded. And Prabhupada says the definition of mode of ignorance is like now he quotes it from the this one. Like no, under the spell of ignorance, one cannot understand a thing as it is. Like no, Prabhupada gives the example that although like everyone sees that their previous generations are they have left this world, but still he conceives that like no, he will not. It is not going to happen to him. People are madly accumulating money and working very hard day and night, not caring for the eternal spirit. This is madness. In their madness, they are very reluctant to make advancement in spiritual understanding. Such people are very lazy. When they are invited to associate for spiritual understanding, they are not much interested. So, contrary, if we see carefully, Prabhupada is writing this when he went to the West, where the situation at that time was of the hippie culture was coming, especially in the New York, where people were leaving everything and they were laying in the street. If you read Lilamruta, also we see Prabhupada sometimes while walking by, he sees that some person is like no lying down and they have urinated there only, and the dress everything is very shabby, and like he's sleeping there, like no drinking. So in that condition they were there, but little carefully observe those who came to Prabhupada in the initial, few of them were hippies only, although there were others also who came, but not those who were very later. Prabhupada got both classes of very well educated, highly qualified also. But the hippies also came. Why? Because those hippies, uh, uh, the hippie culture, like what later I understood reading the Chasing the Rhinos book, is not that they were just lazy bums or something. Yes, they were lazy. They were like having all the things, but they wanted something higher, some higher happiness. For that, they were trying all these things, and that's why when they got that, they could take to bhakti. Whereas those who were like no just uh, completely in the mode of ignorance or something, many of them they could not take it. They went back again to the same. And Prabhupada, right, sorry, in the Krishna tells in the next one that the mode of goodness conditions one's to happiness, passion conditions one to fruitive actions, and the ignorance covering one's knowledge binds one to madness. And in the 10th, he says, sometimes the mode of Goodness becomes prominent, defeating the mode of ignorance and passion. It is like all the three modes at any time. It is not that only one will prevail. No, all three modes one will be there, and at times one becomes prominent than the other two, and that is considered to be the like no that mode of a person. Even in a person, if we say he is in the mode of ignorance, that doesn't mean that his 100% ignorance only is there. No, there will be some amount of traces of like goodness and like no passion also will be there. And Prabhupada in this purport writes, this competition is always going on. Therefore, one who is actually intent on advancing Krishna consciousness has to transcend these three modes. The prominence of some certain mode of nature is manifested in one's dealings, his activities, his eating, etc. That's what is mentioned 17th and 18th chapter. Krishna elaborately explains about the three modes, what kind of things they eat, what kind of charity they give, what kind of the uh, uh, the dana, and again the mm, all these different. This one goes on. Krishna goes on categorizing based on the austerities, what kind of austerities they do. All those things he tells there to understand that, like you want to analyze oneself and to understand what it the three modes and how one can come to the mode of goodness. Because even though mode of goodness is binding, but it is better than the other two because he can see things clearly as what is what. Just like when wearing a white glass, he can see the things clearly. When he sees, then he can take the right decision of going from mode of goodness to the mode Shuddha Sattva. That how to go that I'll just share the Prabhupada's one of the lecture. Prabhupada writes, if one wants, he can develop by practice the mode of goodness and thus defeat the mode of ignorance and passion. Here, Prabhupada is telling, if one wants by practice, one can develop the goodness. And the same thing in another lecture, Prabhupada says, by training, one can train oneself to slowly come to the mode of goodness. Prabhupada gives a simple example that in the circus, we see that the tiger is there and the lion is there, the elephants are there. By training, they do what is told for them that to do. The same way, by proper training, even one can be tamed. The same way, the lower natures can be tamed. And Prabhupada writes in this purpose, although there are these three modes of material nature, if one is determined, he can be blessed by the mode of goodness, and by transcending the mode of goodness, he can be situated in the pure goodness, which is called Vasudeva state. And a state in which one can understand the science of God. And in the 12th verse, Krishna says, when there is increase in the mode of passion, the symptom of great attachment, fruitive activity, intense endeavor, and uncontrollable desire and hankering develop. But one in the mode of passion is never satisfied with the position he has already acquired. He hankers to increase his position. If he wants to construct a residential house, he tries his best to have a palatial house, as if he would be able to reside in that house eternally. And he develops a great hankering for sense gratification. There is no end to sense gratification. He always wants to remain with his family and in his house and to continue the process of sense gratification. There is no cessation of this. All the symptoms should be understood as the mode of passion. And in the next one, he tells about the mode of ignorance, like now, which leads to the darkness, inertia, madness, and illusion, which manifest because of this. In proper rights, when there is no illumination, knowledge is absent. One in the mode of ignorance does not work by a regulative principle. He wants to act whimsically for no purpose. Even though he has the capacity to work, he makes no endeavor. This is called illusion. Although consciousness is going on, life is inactive. These are the symptoms of one in the mode of ignorance. there is they call no living dead, so something like that. So then in the end, like now I'll just skip some of this. Maybe Prabhupada in the 17th verse, Krishna tells, from the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, greed develops. And the mode of ignorance develops foolishness, madness, and illusion. In the Prabhupada writes, like in the mode of ignorance means it is just like animalistic life. Because people have no education in actual knowledge, they become irresponsible. To stop this irresponsibility, education for developing the mode of goodness of the people in general must be there. When they are actually educated in the mode of goodness, they will become sober in full knowledge of things as they are. Then people will be happy and prosperous. Even if the majority of the people aren't happy and prosperous, if a certain percent of the population develops Krishna consciousness and becomes situated in the mode of goodness, then there is possibility for peace and prosperity all over the world. Like now, uh, we see when like now Prabhupada was giving this like sessions when the even though those few people like those who were coming and all were from the hippie background, but when they understood hearing from Prabhupada, then they life got changed. And we'll see in the like now Prabhupada also tells what are the two processes are how we can change oneself from the lower modes. If the world is devoted to the mode of passion and ignorance, there can be no peace and prosperity. In the mode of passion, people become greedy and their hankering for sense enjoyment has no limit. One can see that even if one has enough money and adequate arrangement for sense gratification, there is neither happiness nor peace of mind. That is not possible because one is situated in the mode of passion. If one wants happiness at all, his money will not help him. He has to elevate himself to the mode of goodness by practicing Krishna consciousness. When one is engaged in the mode of passion, not only is he mentally unhappy, but his profession and occupation are also very troublesome. He has to devise so many plans and schemes to acquire enough money to maintain his status quo. This is all miserable. And in the mode of ignorance, people become mad. By being distressed by their circumstances, they take shelter of intoxication and thus they sink further into ignorance. Their future in life is very dark. And then Krishna tells that how Urdham Gachanti Satvastha, like that the people in the mode of goodness, they go upward to the higher planets. Those who are in the mode of passion, they live in the earthly planets, and in the ignorance, they go to the hellish planets. And then, like now, Arjuna asked that uh, Krishna, you are telling all this, you have told these three modes, then how to understand a person who has come out of these three modes and what is his behavior and how does he transcend these three modes? Then in the verse 22 to 25, Krishna tells that what is the nature of a person who has transcended this, and in the like now uh, 26, he says, Krishna gives the solution also. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatitya dhamma bhoyaya kalpate. The sagunan samatitya he transcends these three modes. How? One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at one transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman, that is like Brahma Bhuta state. Like, he says, and the same thing, I'll just go to the one of the lectures which Srila Prabhupada had given on this. This is a lecture on Srimad Bhagavatam 1 to 19, which Prabhupada had given in the Los Angeles in 1972, where Prabhupada, while speaking about the same verse, Pradarajastamo bhava kamalobhadesche chetetar anavidam sitam satya prasidati. While telling about this, Prabhupada um, tells that like now one should come to the platform of goodness because that is compared to the other two it is best. And Prabhupada gives, as I said, that the example of the training, like now, just like the even in the circus, the tigers are trained and they follow the master. So same way by training, it is possible to slowly a person to bring from illiterate, uncultured, animalistic life to the civilized life. And then Prabhupada says to do this, the training, like now there are two kinds of training process. Like now in the one process, he says, which is in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, first chapter, like the 13th and 14th, it comes in the Ajamila section. That is, tapasa brahmacharyena shamena chatamena cha tyagena sattva shauchabhyam yamena niyamena va. Like now, and this, like now, it says that all this, like now, what are the these are the told tapasa by austerity, then by brahmacharya by celibacy, shamena that is by controlling the mind, dhamena that is by controlling the senses, then tyagena like no voluntarily uh, giving charity for the good cause, and satya that is by truthfulness, shaucha that is following the regulative principles. Then yamena niyamena cha, yama is like avoiding the violence, and then niyamena cha by regularly following the do's and the don'ts. Then slowly one can like purify oneself. And in that, Prabhupada tells that yes, this is one process by which one can purify oneself by following all this. But this is a gradual process. And Prabhupada gives the example of if one wants to go from ground floor to fifth floor, one way is to go by the steps, one step by one step by one step, which is a gradual process. And then he says another process is by taking the lift. And Prabhupada tells the one process is gradual, another process is quick. And he says the second process is taking to Krishna consciousness. So and the like no that is like taking to the path of bhakti is like going in the lift. And another example Prabhupada gives that uh, 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 both may reach the top floor. One is slow, one is immediate. Just like if there is a fog, then there are many ways to remove the fog. But if the sun comes, little bit of the sun's rays, that immediately the fog gets removed. The same way, when one practices this bhakti, then one will be able to purify. And for that, Prabhupada again quotes from the previous verses which we read, that in the Bhakti Yoga, the simple process is Shrunatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantasto hi abhadrani. Like all the unwanted things which are there in the heart that is removed. Prabhupada writes in that, tells in that lecture, simply by this process, Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing about Krishna, Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu. Simply by hearing Abhadra, Nashta Prayeshu, all the dirty things within the heart being almost cleansed, we come to the platform of Bhakti. So, and then in that only, like, no, Prabhupada goes on to tell about the symptoms of Kama and Loba, because of which how this pulls a person down and creates so much of hankering in the heart, like no, of wanting to have more and more and more and not being satisfied. So, but the way of coming is like no, the by practice of the Krishna consciousness, and Prabhupada in this whole goes on explaining that how the very simple process of hearing will help that Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, in that it tells that like serving the the book Bhagavata and the person Bhagavata, that both. And uh, another thing Prabhupada says in this lecture, uh, Prabhupada goes on to tell that this is the test, that whether have we uh, able to uh, mm, give up this hankering that has gone out of our heart, that um, uh, strong attraction towards that which is devoid of Krishna. If that is there, that means that still there is the lower modes are there inside the like the heart. That because of which this is there. And Prabhupada tells that there is no need of anyone else telling us. This is the test, that whether are we getting attracted to these, or are we free from this. Uh, Otherwise, Prabhupada tells that uh, if that is not happening, like the uh, kama and loba and all those things are not gone, that means although we are maybe practicing bhakti, but there is something which is missing, because of which that is not fully happening. And Prabhupada says, you take your certificate yourself. Okay, I'll just read. This process will make you to be situated on the platform of goodness. And as soon as you are promoted to the platform of goodness, that means you have already surpassed the other two platforms, means ignorance. And symptoms will be, that is clear here. The symptom is that the two things, lust and greediness, will not disturb you. You haven't got to take certificate from anyone. Just give me certificate that I have become Krishna conscious. You take your certificate yourself. See yourself. Whether you are free from lust and greediness, that is a certificate. If you are confident that I am free from lust and greediness, then I am making progress. Otherwise, I am again in the same, no progress. This is the test. This is the test. If you want to cheat others, that is a different thing. That I have become very advanced in Krishna consciousness. There is another thing, cheating. But you test yourself by this process whether you are free from lust and greediness. This is the test. And when you become free from these two things, lust and greediness, tada cheta ete ranaviddam sthitam satte prasidati. That like now, then Prabhupada goes on to tell that how like now one should slowly come to the platform of the goodness. And as I said, that like now these two modes keeps us pulling down, but uh, if the upward vector of mode of goodness is more, then one will not go down. Otherwise, it will keep pulling us down. And the way of going the upward vector is, as I said, by two process. One is gradual, that is the process of like following the shaucha, shamina, gamina, tyagena, niyama, yama, niyama, all those things. And the another is by taking to the process of bhakti, Krishna consciousness. And in that also, the most effective Prabhupada in this lecture he tells is the Shravanam. And by continuously, regularly, attentively hearing, like, then one can give up this all the abhadras in the heart, that goes away, and he can come to the mode of goodness. And another thing which also helps one to give up the lower, this one is that in the mode of passion and ignorance, it is unsteady or unbalanced, or like like a wave, ups and downs. But uh, mode of goodness is steady state, that is regulated fully. So by following the vidhi, or trying to become regulated in the life, is another way to slowly come to the mode of goodness. Although it is easy than the said, they say that like yes, the regulation, although one may know the solution, but applying is the real challenge, where one has to constantly like work on it, because uh, Even after knowing, we may know, but then to apply is the real challenge and where the effort is needed. So uh, these are the few points which I just thought of sharing, which I could assimilate from little bit of Prabhupada's purpose, what I could understand of this, that about the lower modes and then how to transcend this. If any comments or if anybody would like to add something, then I'll be happy to hear. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Swayam Prakash Prabhu. Thank you for walking through the three modes of nature and what is the characteristics of each mode and how one can transcend these three modes of nature. Thank you for the very nice summary and taking up this class for the second week. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna devotees, Dandavat Pranam. You may please share your comments or questions or reflections that you may have. The lines are unmuted. You may please unmute your mic and share your question.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhu, as far as possible, I'll try to attend the Nityam Bhagavata, unless I'm not in station. Even then, if I'm accessible, I just do it. But I don't get the total understanding. My understanding is only about 20-30%, especially the Tattva. I cannot understand, Prabhu. Like the story form and some of the simple things I can understand. Yeah, that means I have a lot of anarthas in me, Prabhu.
Need not, Mataji, that it is not that, like no, Krishna tells in the Bhagavad Gita that Sarvasya chaham vritisannivishto matta smriti jnanam apohanam cha vedescha sarverahmeva vedya vedanta kritveda videva chaham. So, in the details from me comes the knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. And it is not that one, like to progress in bhakti, only when one understands the tattva fully, only then he'll be able to progress. No, it is a sincerity of a devotee practicing sadhaka that matters a lot, because we hear from the uh, pastime of when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had come to Srirangam, that South Indian Brahmana, who was not very highly learned or literate, he was not even able to read the Bhagavad Gita properly. But because his Guru had told to recite Bhagavad Gita, he was trying to recite, although many mistakes were there, but still he was trying to follow the instruction of his Guru. And because of his sincerity, when he was reading, the tears were rolling from his eyes. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, he said that, what can I do? Why are you crying? You are not able to read properly. He said that although I am illiterate, I cannot read, I cannot understand the Sanskrit and all, but my Guru has told I am following. But whenever I see the Bhagavad Gita, immediately the picture of Krishna becoming the Sarathi of Arjuna comes into my mind. And the thought that how the Supreme Lord, who is the source of everything, he can become the servant of his dear devotee. When I see that Bhakta Vatsalyata, immediately my, like, no, I cannot do anything but just cry seeing the glory of the Supreme Lord. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, you have understood. The same way, like now it is the basically the sincerity of a devotee. I'll just try to read one verse, Mataji. This is the 10th chapter, 10th verse. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogantam yenamam upayantite. To those who are constantly devoted to serve me with love, I give understanding by which they can come to me. So in this only I'll just read. This is the last para of the 10:10. If possible, Sankashan Prabhu can share. If not, I'll read. A person may have a bona fide spiritual master and may be attached to a spiritual organization. But if he is still not intelligent enough to make progress, then Krishna from within gives him instructions so that he may ultimately come to him without difficulty. The qualification is that a person always engage himself in Krishna consciousness and with love and devotion render all kinds of service. He should perform some sort of work for Krishna, and that work should be with love. If a devotee is not intelligent enough to make progress on the path of self realization, but is sincere and devoted to the activities of devotional service, the Lord gives him a chance to make progress and ultimately attain to Him. So, this some of the purports of Prabhupada are so giving solace that, like, no, just by reading them again and again, at least it gives us a hope. So that way, uh, I don't say that Mataji, you are not able to understand. You may be understanding out of humility, you may be saying, but still, even in that case, like no, here Prabhupada is writing that how if one is sincere and like no tries to offer whatever like the practice of devotional service with love and devotion, whatever is possible, and that sincerity will attract the mercy of Krishna. And because Krishna is seated in the heart of everyone as a Paramatma, he understands, and then he will like the Jnana Deepena Bhaswara, that like from within, he Dadami Buddhi Yogantam, he gives the intelligence by which he can reach to Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Like last class, because all of them were asking. It was wonderful. I didn't get a chance to ask you, so it was just in my mind. Maybe I have full of anarthas, or maybe I don't know how to get out of it. Like I was contemplating about that. I try to do my best, but where I'm going wrong, like that. So thank you very
It
much.
need not be Mataji. Like no, the jnana is not the prerequisite for bhakti. So whereas like no, when one practices bhakti, like no jnana and vairagya, they both are the byproducts of bhakti. So that way, nowhere in the like whole this one Chaitanya Mahaprabhu like no didn't tell that like no, oh you should become scholarly or you should become like a Tattva-jnani. But if one has that ability to understand and assimilate and like know this, for them yes they should do that. Even if one is not, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu like no, simply gave this Harinam like no, and the Navida Bhakti by which one can anybody can practice this.
Thank you, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam.
Prabhuji, Rani Mataji is very, very humble. She is one of the regular attendees and she attends the Bhagavatam class every day without fail. I think out of humility, she says like that. Prabhuji, I just want to share. I heard
Amen.
like one of the Prabhupada disciple. I'm not sure about the name. I think it's Hridayananda Goswami Maharaj. In his very early days, when he was asked to give the class, Bhagavatam class or Bhagavad Gita class, he was not really sure how to give because he doesn't know anything. So what he did was that day we had Walkman, no Prabhuji? Yes, he kept the Walkman, he hit the headphone, and then he played Prabhupada class. He just repeated. And later, I understand that he was one of the disciples who was actually instrumental in translating the 11th and 12th cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam. The person who was at that level, and then he was actually writing purport on behalf of Srila Prabhupada. That is one example that we see in our own parampara. And also, I heard in one of the disciples of Madhvacharya, when Madhvacharya was teaching this knowledge, and I think some disciples they were a little bit pride, and there was a cow who was which was standing and listening, and Madhvacharya was pointing out that that cow will get the knowledge like that he was telling, and that cow happened to be one of the next birth prominent acharyas in the Madhva Sampradaya. So I hear that from him. Mataji is very humble, but she is very
Right.
sincere. Probably she is very sincere.
And even like no, practically, like whenever I have attended or like I would see previously also that like no, every class she like now ask a relevant question, so that itself shows that like the person who asks a question means he is not just like the hearing or the something, he is analyzing and trying to reflect on the application on one's life, and then only the question comes. Otherwise you may just sit and like you may hear, and like when one tries to contemplate more and try to analyze it, then the question comes. The very fact that he's asking the question, that means like no, yes, she is like,
Prabhuji, on this context, I think there is also one more sloka, no, Prabhuji, where Krishna says, Jnana Deepena Chakshusha. And
Jnanadipena Bhasvata.
and he says, I will light the candle of knowledge in their heart. And
That only, yeah.
thank you.
Yes.
Which loka is that, Prabhuji? That one? 10, yeah.
10.11.
10.11, huh? Okay,
I
okay.
think yeah. Tesham evanakam partha mahamajnanajam tama nashayam atmabhavata jnanadipena Bhasvata.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, devotees. Are there any other questions? Or
Thank you for
Yeah,
wonderful nectar.
although Mataji said, I don't know anything, but still, like the moment you said, the immediately she is able to quote the shloka number.
yes, Prabhuji.
No, Prabhu, that is Chatusloki. Every day I read that 4 slokas. None.
Yes, somebody was commenting something.
Prasadeshwar Krishna Prabhu. Hari Bol Prabhuji, please.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam, Prakash Prabhu. Thank you for nectar repeatedly. Hope every Wednesday will take your association.
Hare Krishna.
Provided Sam Prakash Sankash Prabhu approves. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, devotees. There are no questions. Dayamai Baladev Prabhu, you are unmuting the mic. Are there any questions from you, Prabhuji? Okay. Thank you, devotees. Thank you for your patient hearing. And we will end today's session with Vaishnava Pranam. Vancha Kalpataru. Patidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo.
Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki jai.
Jagadguru
Srila
Prabhupada.
Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Thank you.
Prabhupada Lilamruta ki jai. Thank you. Thank you, devotees. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam. I'll end that Zoom session.